Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. You're dialed set correctly to USAPrepares.com. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, and John is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. Hey, welcome, Rick.
Good morning. I love your laugh when you start this show. It really changes everything. No, yeah, it's wonderful.
Does it really?
Thank you. It's just what the doctor
Rick,
ordered.
I can't believe. Rick, I can't believe that we're on the air. Why does Ted Anderson, owner of GCN, and why does John Statmiller, owner of Republic Broadcasting, why do all of the other broadcasting stations, why do they put us on the air? I mean, they actually allow us to say the things we say and make the comments that we make. It's kind of them, you know.
I've met
every once in a while
the latter person, and he's limber.
Yeah, John Statmiller,
a radical. I don't know Ted Anderson, but I do know. I've met the other one. I've actually, spent overnight with him, and I actually liked his paranoid. He's a lovely person. Well, really,
he really is, and
yeah,
John Statmiller's a great guy. I remember.
I have not met.
Ted
Turner, but
Ted
wasn't
Anderson.
he married to
Ted Anderson?
Ted Anderson. Oh.
No. You're wrong, Ted. Wrong. Ted Anderson.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, you're thinking of Ted Turner, who is married to Hanoi Jane.
Yes.
Jane Fonda.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Barbarella. Yeah, by any other name.
Hey, Rick, at the top of the hour, they're talking about a gas tax increase in New Jersey. Now, it's a 23 cent per gallon additional gas tax. That's 10%.
You want to know something?
If gas
and
is
while all this nonsense is going on, Alaska had this last year, every single citizen of Alaska received $1,200 from their pipeline. And actually, I understand they just discovered more oil up there to stop this nonsense.
Well, the point I'm trying to make is the state of New Jersey, the Garden State as it's known, is increasing the gasoline tax by 23 cents per gallon. Now, if they just had that one tax, if there were no tax on it to begin with, and they just did this, it would be 10% of the cost of gasoline. If gasoline were, around $2 a gallon.
Yeah.
Well, this is on top of their other gas tax. So it's probably, and I've tried to find the previous amount of gas tax before they are going to increase it. And it's hard to find it. It's kind of buried somewhere. But I'm thinking by the time they're done, it's going to be about 20%.
Well, it's probably more than that, actually.
And by the way,
they're trying to do the same thing
in Missouri, it's over 30 cents per gallon in Missouri. So it's about 15%. By the way, my son and my wife, Mrs. Finelli, were talking about a website my son found, and there was this reporter for CNN. Now, I haven't seen this, but this is what they were discussing. This reporter for CNN didn't know her microphone was live and said something kind of like this. Now, I'm paraphrasing, that, Obama is paying CNN not to say certain things in the news. Obama is paying. That means the government is paying, or the corporation is paying for news not to be released. And I looked at them and I said, we've been talking about this for years, saying that, the companies who are doing well are in bed with the government, like Verizon selling secrets, Yahoo selling secrets, those kinds of companies. Now, every day, there's more and more information about how Yahoo was involved in spying on our emails. And they wrote this custom software to spy on our emails that we've been sending each other. This is Yahoo. So we know that the other guys are doing it, like Verizon.
Well, Google is the one that invented the facial recognition and all the rest of this stuff that's going on in profiling, all these pop-up ads that pest us, trying to get us to buy things.
Yeah. And lately, within the last couple of weeks, it's these advertisements on the internet are absolutely, positively out of control. And, I'll just go to a news site. I'll get to the page. Next thing I know, there's a pop-up that covers just about everything I want to see. And I'll click on that. And then I'll find that some of these sites will fade out. So you can't read the text. They will fade the text so it's so light.
Yeah.
And I don't like it. So what I'm doing is I'm making mental.
This is all the Alabama ticks that it's giving you with what they call spyware. I have to use super spyware.
Yes.
And every time I turn my computer on, by the time I turn it off, I have 700 or 800 different add-ons that are tracking my every keystroke.
So I just got I'm looking at the New Jersey sales tax. I just got full screen, just popped up. There's this white guy hugging and feeding a black baby, and it's jockey underwear. Now, I haven't done a search on jockey underwear, but here it is. And now it just went away. What I'm saying is, I can't stand this. So now I've made a mental note. I will not buy jockey underwear. Okay? And it's simple as that. That's how I behave with these pop-ups that I don't want, or these ads that I don't want. I will just make a mental note to boycott the companies who are in my way. I mean, why are they doing this? And the ads are stupid. They're idiotic.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Rick, you went to Kansas City over the weekend. I was there. Matt Stein was there. Craig Douglas was there. Met a lot of new friends. It was great. We had dinner at a Chinese restaurant. By the way, you sat at the other end of the table from me. I sat across from, I sat down. Dr. Joel Wallach sat down next to me. Now, I had to be very careful what I ate because he was watching me.
Yeah. He's like right there on point.
Yep. Yeah. So we were at the buffet, standing next to each other, and the waitress was there, and he said he wanted to know if gluten was in this sauce and that sauce and the other sauce, and I applaud him for doing that. And he wanted to know what was made with wheat, what was made with corn, how the dishes were made. He's very, very careful. And he's the guy is amazing. He flies and does last year he did 404 seminars. It's almost impossible. 404 seminars in 1 year, that means multiple seminars in the same day. It's the only way you can do that. But he critiqued what I ate. And I had I don't like. Did you have the shrimp? I don't eat the shrimp. I don't eat shrimp.
No, but I do like shrimp. But you have to use a Geiger counter now. I have to tell you that bottom feeders are going to pick up anything on the bottom, heavy metals, and then if there's anything else creepy like plastic and or radiation, you can be sure they're going to get that bottom clean.
For as long as I can remember, I've been calling lobster and shrimp the cockroaches of the ocean. Would you say that's somewhat true?
Well, they don't eat the wood. They eat everything else. Yeah.
So I don't eat shrimp, and I'm concerned about seafood in the ocean. And by the way, there was a report yesterday or the day before about the entire Pacific being contaminated with radiation. The entire Pacific Ocean.
This is a real, serious, immediate, in-our-face problem, and nobody's discussing it.
Well, we do here, and we have since day 2. The day after it happened, we said this is the worst man-made disaster since Noah's flood. People laughed at us when we said that, or when I said that the day after Fukushima. I was very concerned about it because of, the ocean is really big, but all the oceans are interconnected. And the amount of radiation they're dumping in is 300 tons of radioactive waste per day. 300 tons of radioactive waste per day. I challenge anybody to take a shovel and move 300 tons of anything. And it would take years for a person to move 300 tons of anything with a shovel.
They're finding that all of our larger mammals now also have massive quantities of plastic bubbles in there, little pieces of plastic that have rounded up because of wearing in the ocean. Everything is poisoned now. Everything.
Rick, how about the toothpaste? How about I believe it's Crest toothpaste. I'll look it up during the commercial break that's coming. But I believe it's Crest toothpaste that puts these little plastic balls in their toothpaste. And the idea is it'll just help you scrub your teeth better. Maybe. I guess allegedly that's what it might be for. However, these little plastic balls get stuck under the gum and cause gum problems, gum inflammation. And then when you hopefully rinse your mouth out and spit out the toothpaste and the plastic balls, they go down the drain, and then little animals eat them. And they're now consuming these little plastic balls. So are these really unintended consequences, or are these things that the scientists say, yeah, but everybody's going to spit out their toothpaste, or at least most of it, and it's going to go down the drain, it's going to go into the sewage treatment system, and then it's going to go into the rivers and the ocean, and wow, who's going to eat it next? They've got to know this. They have to know that they're doing this, and then upper management approves this. So let's bring these upper management types to trial, and let's mete out justice to them for destroying our planet and destroying other living animals and plants. We'll be right back. Doc Ram's with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. If you'd like to go to his website, docram.com, docram.com. Rick, I was mentioning plastic and toothpaste. So they have these, Crest has these little blue plastic pieces of polyethylene. And that's the same material that if you have a plastic garbage can, that's what that's made out of, that plastic garbage can. So this woman is a dental hygienist, and she's saying that she sees these blue specks in people's gums almost every day. So we're putting plastic in toothpaste for what are we doing it for? Decorative purposes. And maybe they're alleging that it would help scrub our teeth a little bit better.
I need to say two things about toothpaste. The first is that toothpaste normally has peppermint in it, which is addictive. Spearmint is not. Peppermint is addictive. And so if you're using toothpaste that has peppermint flavoring in it, that is eventually like mouthwash. Those become habit and addictive forms just like drugs. Worse, so I personally use toothpaste that is made out of France, Ayurvedic. It's mostly licorice root. If you can find, the Chinese used to use licorice, the root of licorice, because when you scour it on your gum, it releases glyceric acid, which is an antibacterial. It goes in and kills everything. And they used to carry their toothbrushes as a big, long stick in their pocket and just wire brush their teeth whenever they felt like it because it gave it a dose of licorice root. Now, if you can find that without the flavorings, you're probably going to be doing something almost as good as baking soda and or related that will actually scour the tartar off your teeth. The problem I'm finding with dentistry now is worse than medicine with cavitation in the butt. When they do root canals, they are making little crevices for bacteria to be able to find and hold a place for infection. And that's why root canals are possibly worse than radiation sickness from, being nuked or chemo. And when you realize that they're also using amalgam and mercury as part of your tooth filling, at some point, that technology, dental technology, has reached, spooky black plague days. I mean, it's terrible what's going on in medicine and dentistry. And you'll notice that dentistry is not covered at all on Medicare. And mostly, that's where most of my money goes in my health now. It's not in medicine, it's in dentistry. What's going on?
Well, Rick, I was on the air with Dr. Norm Shealy yesterday, and we were talking about toothpaste. And Dr. Shealy feels that baking soda and maybe a little bit of salt is the way to go. And that's what I do. I brush my teeth with baking soda.
Some apple cider vinegar, some other things that go in and take out molds and yeast. Yes, especially if you have a high sugar diet. Yes.
Well, that's something Norm Shealy recommends against. He says that sugar is toxic.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, he says it
in
is.
all forms, not just sucrose. Fructose sugars are just the same as far as your body. And if you ate a lot of fruit, you still would have candida.
And so how do you eat healthy without eating fruit? Can it be done? I mean, Dr. Shealy recommends fruit and nuts as a snack.
All fruits have sugars in them. Everything has sugar in them. That's the deal. When you eat things, you have gotten accustomed to a certain kind of flavoring. And there are certain things like cranberries that are extremely good for you. I mean, in terms of your urethral tube, cleaning it out. The problem is when they mix it with sugar so you can drink it, it becomes toxic. So what you want is unsweetened cranberry juice when you're trying to clean out your urine and urinary tract. However, because it's so rough to drink, what some people are doing now is they'll put real juice without adding sugar in the container like cranberries, and then they'll have a straw that is the first thing that you suck on is Miracle Berry. And Miracle Berry changes the enzyme in your mouth so that for the next half hour, everything, that comes from Hawaii, grows natural there. When you suck on that, after that, everything you taste for the next half hour tastes sweet. Rhubarb stevia is another one, but it has a more metallic flavoring to it that a lot of people don't
Hold that thought. Rick, I just I found the information about gasoline taxes by state. And New Jersey is taxed at 14.5 cents per gallon right now, 14.5 cents per gallon. Then there's a federal tax of 18.4 cents per gallon. And then they're going to add 23 cents per gallon additional New Jersey tax. By the time they're done, when they add this 23 cents, they'll be at 55.9 cents per gallon tax. And we talked about 20%. Yeah, that's a little over 20% because at $2 a gallon, 55.9 cents is over 20% per gallon tax.
As I remember it, also New Jersey has a toll bridge tax as well that they add on while you're driving on the road, and that's probably one of the reasons I don't want to live in New Jersey.
Well, it's worse than that. If anyone traveled in New Jersey in the 1950s, they were talking about putting in a really nice road called the Garden State Parkway, and it was going to be beautiful. And they were going to put in some. Here's what they did. They said, they were going to put in some temporary toll booths, so that they could pay for this road. And then what they did was they had tolls that were rather inexpensive, and then they increased the tolls. Then they increased the frequency of the toll booths. And now it's really expensive to drive on the Garden State Parkway. So what they did was they said it's going to be temporary, and then they increased the number of booths and the amount of each toll. And they did the same thing. The same tactics were used by the government or the governance of the state of New Jersey when they had what they called a budget shortfall. I'm not sure the exact year that they did this, and they said, we're going to put in a temporary sales tax, just temporary, 0.5%. And this was an incredible nuisance to anyone who was in business, because they said, well, food won't be taxed. Well, some things are necessary, so they won't be taxed by the sales tax, and other things are not necessary, so we'll tax those. And it was a nightmare and a morass for business. And they had to develop a sales tax system for each business. So they had these little charts. If you went into a store like an auto parts store, they had a little chart and it said, okay, if it's between this sales amount and this sales amount, here's the tax, because they didn't necessarily have calculators on the counters of these mom and pop stores. And it started out as 0.5%. And they said, you know what? It's really working. We're almost there. All we have to do is just a slight increase, just a slight one, just 0.5 cent more, which was literally doubling the sales tax in the Garden State. So it went from a temporary 0.5% to 1% to 2, 3, 4, 5, and it kept going. And it's still there. It's still there. So this temporary thing, when they say temporary, I think they mean, centuries.
I don't know, man. The whole thing about politics now is leaving a very bad taste in my mouth.
Well, let me tell you what they.
Let
me tell you what.
At all.
There was a governor. There was a governor who people hated, absolutely hated. His name was Brendan Byrne, and they hated this guy so much that they would send him used toilet paper. And they would say, burns my butt. Well, I didn't quite say it that way, but that's what they meant. And that's what they sent the governor in the mail. They sent him used toilet paper. Now, if they did it today, I'm sure a SWAT team would be at your door because they'd use DNA to figure out who's...
Yeah. It's being a terrorist. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Rick, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was I was making oatmeal this morning. And I was steel cut oats for our family, and I was stirring it, and naturally I'm very concerned about the cookware that we use. So we use stainless steel pots and pans, and had a stainless steel spoon in there, and I heard this sound, and it's the sound that it always makes, the spoon touching the bottom of the pan as I was stirring the cooking oatmeal on the stove. Now, I know that if a person has an artificial hip and it has stainless steel on stainless steel, meaning a stainless steel ball and a stainless steel socket, there are millions of particles, if you will, of stainless steel that enter the bloodstream throughout the day just by walking around and using that artificial hip. Well, I did this intentionally. I intentionally stirred the oatmeal so that it wouldn't burn in the pan. Now, here's my question. Stainless steel is made with nickel, and it's an alloy, right? Well, am I killing myself? And then not just me. Is everyone who is cooking, and then, of course, you think about restaurants. Do they use stainless steel, these big kettles? I don't think so. I think they use aluminum. They use aluminum baking pans, and they use stainless steel spatulas on aluminum baking pans when they make cookies and breads and so forth. So the question is, are we killing ourselves with metal slowly, Rick?
Well, That's an argument for juicing and eating raw. And I don't know anybody that is not a juicer, that's a juicer and eats raw foods that is unhealthy. They are the healthiest diet that I've ever seen are those that eat raw and non-cooked foods, eating raw foods and juicing. Now, with that said, a blender is also made with stainless steel and or other parts to it that are adding to the brew. Boiling water means that you are destructuring the water from the outside in and is completely different than destructuring the water from the inside out. Microwave. A lot of things that we do need to be revisioned in why and how we do things. Aluminum is possibly 1,000 times more deadly than stainless steel is, and why I use stainless steel over aluminum. All of it's bad. All of it has toxicity. And if you think that's bad, take a look at what your water has in it. And if you don't think that'll creep you out, and when I say this, it was Donald Trump that I have to quote this guy. I'm not for him at all. However, he said it used to be you made automobiles in Wichita and you couldn't drink the water in Mexico. Now it's the opposite. You can't drink the water in Detroit, and Mexico makes the automobiles. What's happening to our world? Right in front of your eyes.
Rick, you're talking about boiling water. Now, often in the evenings, I'll make some tea. And what I did was I bought, for our expo, I bought a couple of those Bunn coffee makers. And they have these glass carafes, probably hold about 10 cups of water. And I'll put them on our propane gas stove, and I'll add some ProPure water to the Bunn glass. It's like Pyrex glass coffee pot, and I'll throw in a tea bag, and I'll make 10 cups of tea, and I'll drink the whole thing. Or Mrs. Finelli, my mom, and I will share it. And it's just one tea bag and all of that. Now, my question is, I can do that, or I can, if I wanted to, we have a range hood that I bought because it was less expensive to buy a microwave range hood than it was to buy, a vented hood for our gas stove. So I chose to get one that had a microwave in it because it was a lot less expensive, like 1/5 the cost of just a hood over the stove that would just vent outside. And this does the same thing, except it's got a microwave oven in it. I guess they make more of them, and it's less expensive, and it works fine for evacuating the steam from cooking. Here's the question. I could easily take that carafe or a cup and put it in the microwave with the same ProPure water and boil or heat up the water for tea, or I could heat it on the stove. Which is safer for us? Is there a difference for those new to the class? Is there a difference heating water with a microwave oven?
There is. I think that it isn't so much in the destructuring of the water, which is important, and we've all started to realize that, the way we put the water in a jar and then put a small amount of impurity in it to restructure the water, like baking soda or something of that nature. What is happening is that when you destructure the water from the inside out, it is a much more thorough job than destructuring the water from the outside and the surfaces of where the heat is coming from. Remember those elements that you used to put inside your cup that got hot all by itself and it was inside the liquid? That would be like destructuring the water from the inside out. All your water always starts to roll from the outside inward, and that is a very slower process of destructuring water. However, the water itself has got impurities in it coming out of municipalities that I can't even begin to tell you. I mean, toxic levels of things like lead now. Detroit and several of Flint, Michigan, other places like that are now reporting extreme toxicity. It's time that everybody starts paying attention to the things you took for granted and not making a presumption that it's okay.
Rick, have you ever seen someone get a swimming pool, maybe a brand new swimming pool, or one that they're going to fill up for the first time? They take a really clean pool and they take a garden hose and they fill it with city water. Have you ever seen that happen?
Yeah, groundwater or irrigation water, which is different than drinking water. And let me tell you, the Midwest does not make a distinction about that anymore. And here in Oregon, you have to constantly police our water municipality because they break the law by accident sometimes, where they will not tell the public. They just let it happen, and then they fix it quietly without letting anybody know that they just got a bunch of toxic water going out to everybody's home.
Everybody gets their fair share. Hold that thought. We'll be right back. I've got a couple points I'd like to make when we come back. Doc Ram's with us, docram.com. Rick, I remember when I was much younger, filling a swimming pool with a hose from a well, and it was pretty clean. It was pretty clean, but it wasn't as clean as I thought it would be. I could see, an 8 feet of water down the deep end. It wasn't as crystal clear as I would have expected. But when you see the water coming out of a hose, it looks absolutely crystal clear. That same water coming out of the kitchen faucet looks absolutely crystal clear. You put it in your glass, clear glass, it looks crystal clear. But when you have 8 feet of it, it's not as clear. You can see, the turbidity and so forth. Well, when I saw a swimming pool being filled with city water, wow, what a difference. It was really dirty compared to well water. And that's the water that most people in the country drink. They drink city or municipal water. And now we're finding out that tap water has drugs, from reusing the water. Rick, my understanding is that the amount of water that we have on this planet is almost fixed. We're not making any more, and what we've got is what we've got, and we're reusing the same water that might have been dinosaur pee, years ago.
I know it's kind of scary to realize that we pay these taxes to have this kind of protection, and in fact, the more we pay, the less we have. What does that suggest?
A criminality.
Criminals.
That's what it suggests.
Keep going on this until they can get away with it, until you draw a line and say no. Like here in Oregon, our law enforcement is so bad that nobody will vote to support law enforcement. It's had 4 levies. They all failed. So they snuck a 5th levy on at the last moment, trying to get the money and law enforcement, rather than working on a shoestring, will actually try and not provide service to scare everybody. And I have had enough, and I'm going to start calling it as I see it. Did you notice a difference in the law enforcement presence at our thing today? Last weekend?
Tell me what you saw.
Well, I went up just a moment. I walked up to the guy. I had seen him last year. I had asked him for, patches for my father-in-law. He was going to send me some. Yeah. And this year, he just scowled at me.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you said that because, all right, here's what's really interesting. I didn't know that you did that because when I walked in, the two guys were at the front desk. We're talking about a convention. Rick and I were at a convention.
Their cars were too, by the way, out front.
Well, I saw a bunch of new cars, and I was like a child in a candy store. Wow, look at all these and they've got new features, and I'm looking in the window. I thought someone was going to grab me by the collar and yank me away.
I know.
And what I noticed, Rick, was they were all shiny and new, and they didn't have time to put identification on them. For example, some of the cars that I saw, they put these little stickers in the window, like these paper signs on the dashboard, saying police department, because they were illegally parked. They were parked in a fire lane, but fire lane doesn't apply to the police department because they can do whatever they want because they have guns. But so I was looking at these vehicles, and they have really interesting vehicles. They have sport utility vehicles, brand new. They have cruisers, brand new. They have even older cars that might look like they'd blend in with traffic like the rest of us might drive. They've got them too. And they were all there. And so I went in, and by the way, there were these signs that said you can't bring a gun in there, no CCW. I saw those signs. And I didn't think it meant us. Well, I don't know. And I didn't want to ask. So I'll tell you more about it when we come back on the other side of this break. I'll tell you what I saw, and I talked to those guys. I talked to the guys in uniform, and I think there's this new ordinance that police are not allowed to smile anymore. That's what I noticed. I think that's what you were talking about.
Not allowed to smile.
Because, well, no, I don't think they are. I think they lose points. They lose points, or they get demerits if they smile. So Rick and I will be right back right after the top of the hour news and commercial announcements, and I'll tell you what my take was on the police over the weekend. Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. So Rick, you and I were at the same event. Matt Stein was there, Craig Douglas was there over the weekend. And hour number 1, toward the end, you were talking about the cops at the at the event, and the same guys that we've seen. Well, same guy that we've seen. Well,
that one guy,
before. Yeah.
With his attitude,
yeah. So next to him was a guy that I don't think I've seen him before. Another cop. And when I walked in at first, I had my briefcase, if you will. It's a nylon bag, and all kinds of goodies are in there. Like I had my little notebook computer that I used for my presentation, and a couple pens and a pad. And so I had, they had a gun check-in. They don't really like you walking around with a loaded gun at these things. So to be polite, I checked my 45 in. I had it in. Well, I carry it on my side sometimes.
I saw it with that little yellow sticker on it.
Well, yeah, that meant that little yellow sticker, it didn't have a smiley face, but it meant that I had been
Yeah.
It meant that I had been inspected, detected, and approved with that gun. But what they did was they put a nylon tie strap on it so that the action would not work. I could not put a round in the chamber because they had this.
Did they do that last year?
Yeah. But here's the thing. So I presented my 45 unloaded, butt first, so that it's a polite thing you do. You don't want to point it. You don't want to point it at a guy when you're handing it to him, and point it at him. So I handed it to him butt first, unloaded, and he checked it to make sure it was unloaded, and he put the tie strap in it, and then with a unsmiling face, magazine. He wanted to know if I had the magazine for it. And so I thought about that for a second, and I didn't answer him. Magazine. He looked at me like, you hear me? You hear what I said?
Yeah.
And I said, no. No. So I just gave him a no. And so he let me go through. And later on, I went to the same guys, and I happened to be walking back into the building, and I passed these guys, had my 45 with the tie wrap on my side. And here's my plan. So if something happens, I might be able to get to a magazine relatively quickly. I might be able to load my 45 relatively quickly, and I have a knife to cut the strap really quickly. But I went back to those guys, and I said, there's some pretty famous people here. And I was saying this to actually both of them. And the new guy there looked up at me like totally disinterested in what I was saying. And I said, right inside that door there is the real Fox Mulder of the X-Files. Yeah. I mean, he was, I couldn't believe the amount of uncaring, unconcern, lack of smiles. You know, maybe if I said Miley Cyrus is coming.
He was that big either, so we're even.
But you know,
I wasn't impressed either. So you know, I guess.
Yeah, but even. I guess what I'm saying is, I didn't see any smiles. Either I don't know. Either they told that their raise isn't coming, or their brand new police car of the week isn't coming. I don't know what it was, but they didn't seem very happy, and I don't understand that. How can a person go through life being miserable? You know, is it an authority?
Anger is what most of us have because something weird happened at the moment of birth or just after, and we've got this trauma that has led us to our current nooks and crannies. And what we need to do is go back and revision that event as an adult so that we have this dialogue going on between our past and our little child inside ourselves and who we have become. And when you do something like that, then you get screwy like me, where I can now laugh at things. I'm going to say something about the law enforcement there. I noted that last year they both looked me in the eye and told me they were going to send me patches from my father-in-law, and I have not received anything. They have forgotten that, and I didn't. How's that work?
Well, wait. Well, maybe I should be a little more polite.
To me, that as my, nice how, shook hands, all of that they were going to give me little patches like my father-in-law goes, he's not my father-in-law, but he's kind of like, my girlfriend's father goes around and collects badges from different law enforcement groups and military operations, and I gave him a Steel 1 badge like I carry. And I looked at the guy, and here I am. Law enforcement is no longer the country I served and protected, and I have to tell you there's something wrong in Guacamora. And when I see that, because last year they were smiley to me, shook my hand, and were going to send me badges. And this year I didn't shake hands with either of them. Neither offered. I said, hi, nice to see you again this year. And they just blew me off. And that's okay. I blew them off too. But so it's okay. But I do understand how to be polite, and I was raised in a generation that respected older people, and I remember that I have actually done more service than those assholes, and it pissed me off that they would blow me off like that.
You got to be careful what you say, Rick.
I know, but I needs to be. Something's wrong, because last year it wasn't like that. And last year we talked about the distinction between Kansas City police and Lebanon.
By the way, did you notice? Yeah, did you notice that at our last 3 expos, we didn't have any police. We didn't. And by the way, that's a problem. You see, I was talking to one of the attendees at the expo, and we were talking about what's happened to us at USA Prepares. And I mentioned that in the last 3 expos, we didn't use the police. And it seems to be that the police are in bed with the city, of course, and the city owns or the county, or the city and the county own the venue, and they like to make sure they take care of their own. So if you don't use their caterer or their concession stand, they hate you. They hate you because they lose revenue. And they complain to me how much revenue they lost because I paid them. I paid the city and the county not to staff the concession stand with their people, because I refused to let them sell hot dogs for $4.50 or $5 or $6, popcorn for a few dollars, a soft drink for $4.50. I refused to allow them to rip off our attendees and our students. Well, they don't like it when you do that, because you're taking money from the city. Well, they also price fix the police, who sit there with no smiles on their faces. Literally, they sit there and they're $25 an hour plus tip. So these guys want $25 an hour. It doesn't matter which guy you get. You cannot call your own guy. You can't say, hey, I really like this guy, Bob. Let me call him up. He's with another town, but he's a really good guy. No, you've got to use
nepotism.
their police.
That's what they call nepotism and that kind of thing, yeah.
Well, absolutely. And they've got this thing locked down. So it's like a union. It's like a closed shop union.
Well, that's
with these guys.
exactly right. And what I was going to try to imply was I noticed a change in Kansas City, Missouri's police force, in their behavior last year to this year. They were
I noticed exactly the same thing.
Than adversarial.
They were what? More what?
They were more, interfacing with the crowds and public, where they mingled with the crowd and people talked to them, and there were little groups around them talking to them. This year, they were isolated and separated and made that body language. And I remember the Missouri militia came up to me and was talking to me about that very thing. And so I don't know what's going on in Kansas City, Missouri, but there is and has been a change from this year to last year. And FYI, I noted it.
Yeah, it's not a pleasant change. It is, it's negative. It's a negative change.
And they created an area over there where the table was, where there was kind of like it felt dark. And then the rest of the place was the gun show with people mingling and, buying their things and talking and all of that. Last year, those police were at the table, but they were also in with a crowd, and they were interfacing with the crowd like a human being would.
Very, very interesting. And by the way, they know who we are. And literally, I mentioned, I said,
know who they are. And I remember the one guy looked me in the face, shook my hand, and said he would do something that he has not done. And I'm calling him on it publicly. There it is. He made an agreement with me, and he didn't honor it. Is that a reflection of his character? I remembered it. He didn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, overall, this was the event we went was absolutely great. It really was a fabulous.
And Rex and Randy Curley are really cool people. It was an interest. This was a fun show, actually.
Yeah, it was one of the most fun shows I've ever been to, and it was the best RK prepper show that I've been to. By the way, on October 8th, this weekend coming up, there are gun shows, RK gun shows, Joplin, Missouri, Nashville, Tennessee, Columbus, Georgia. That is this weekend in October 8 and 9. Joplin, Missouri, Nashville, Tennessee, Columbus, Georgia. Now, next weekend, October 15th, there's one in Knoxville, Tennessee, Springfield, Mo, and Topeka, Kansas. And I plan on going to the Springfield, Mo one. That's next, not October 8th, but October 15th. A couple things I need to get, and I plan on going to the one in Springfield, Missouri, October 15th. That's RK Gun Shows. Rick, you had an interview, I believe it was yesterday, with National Geographic, wasn't it? When we come back, would you tell us all about that?
Sure.
Okay, we'll be right back. Graham's with us. So, Rick, Mrs. Finelli said that you talked with her and that you were being interviewed by National Geographic.
History Channel. And
History Channel, that's it.
Now, since I signed a contract, mention it or write about it or put it on my Facebook until it plays. However, I can talk about what we were talking about. And it's basically just recently they've discovered caves in the bottom of the Grand Canyon that are quite extensive. And when you go into them, they're like really old. They've been there since Cleopatra, and they were filled with hieroglyphics and other artifacts from even older epochs. And the direction I put sounds like a pre-Smithsonian, where at the end of the movie, they put the Ark of the Covenant in this big cavern somewhere and shut it down. And the whole reason is why. What is the intent of trying to suppress certain discoveries or information? And that was what I did the interview on.
So do you have a feel for what this means?
Isn't that interesting? And some of it is random. The Smithsonian was started by two brothers that were the son of this Methodist minister that dogged with that Mormon guy, Joseph Smith, for more than 20 years when he ripped off that Methodist clutch. That's what they called them back then, a religious group, and they became Mormon from a close encounter moving into the West. And the Smithsonian then became a place where a repository of discoveries were made so that you could go see them. One I did last month was about that giant skull that was discovered in the 1800s in Pennsylvania. And where did it go? And I summarily suggested it probably went into the Atlantic Ocean as the sons were trying to validate their father chasing after Joseph Smith. Now, I don't know what actually happened, and in fact, because of the way things are, there is a high likelihood we'll never know. Like, why did the Germans settle in Antarctica? Well, when I was there, I saw a Viking base from the 14th century that was also in Antarctica. Where is that in the history books? And then you start to realize there has been a thread of certain kinds of information that have been suppressed. In the movie Independence Day, when the president is down in Area 51 and the scientist comes up and says, "You want to see one?" And the other guys say plausible deniability. I don't know who is doing what, and it's so convoluted with different sidebars that may or not be related that sifting out the data of what actually happened is stunning, even for someone like me. I know I'm never going to probably know what actually happened. It's like that.
Rick, what was your take on the Viking base?
It wasn't like the size of the Nazi infiltration thing there, which was about a mile away. But the Viking base looked like it held more than one ship, and more than one ship. It was in ruins, of course, and it's old and it's crumbly, and it looked like something out of Mexico when they're unearthing it. When I was there in the 70s, my primary was to just determine what the light was from, the bioluminescence in this bacteria that lined the cavern walls. They were like over a mile high, and there was weather with clouds and actual precipitation and wind. And it's like being outside. But it wasn't being outside. It felt like you were inside. Yeah, Hollywood. That is possibly what some guy, if you want a more interesting part of this, some guy heard me on Red Ice talking about it and called me from England. He was 10 years older than me. That means he was in his 80s. I can finish that when we come back.
Okay. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, and I'd also like to know more about the Third Reich base that you saw there when we come back. Doc Ram, docram.com, DOCRAM.com. Class Doc Ram's with us, and if you'd like to buy some of his books, docram.com will get you started. Rick, what's up with Antarctica? What's happening there, and why is it occupied?
Yeah, so this guy was in the Royal Air Force. He was in his 80s and was part of the so-called mop-up crew with Russia, U.S., and England going in and taking out the Nazis in the 60s. And they dropped a nuclear bomb on that. And he said that when they went in to do the mop-up, there were bunch of them escaped into lower caverns. And that's even further down than where the Viking base is. And that, we're talking about 100 miles down in the earth, and past the mantle and Middle Earth. And I'm guessing the reason they did not, we're not speaking German today, is that they ran into something down below that stopped that nonsense. Kind of like in the movie The Abyss, where there are angels that are down below in the deep trenches, and where man has never been, so we have no clue as a life form. And because we're finding artifacts indicating Ant-Men that the Hopi talked about, and we're finding giants like Nephilim, that there are other humanoids on this earth that we have yet to encounter. And the Greys, as I look at them, remind me of the Hopi Ant-Men that helped and saved the Hopi during that one epoch, where the reason the ant has two bodies and a small gut, which is a single line, is that they gave that to the Hopi so they could survive. They gave them their food. That's the song in medicine that the Hopi sang about the blue cucina. Now, something else is going on here that doesn't quite make sense. In the interview, I did reference the fact that Darwin lied and has just been recently busted in anthropology for faking a bunch of his data to come up with his evolution theorem. And I've met Lloyd Pye, and I have actually held the Star Child skull that was found in the 1800s down in Mexico. Looks like an ant or a gray, and the bones tissue is different. The bones tissue on this skull I was looking at was cavitated like dendrites going right through the skull, so that rather than the way insects currently communicate with each other via pheromone, they would do it by touching foreheads, and a transfer of information was done, possibly as an experiment that chose, like Borg consciousness, that was chosen not to isolate where we are as individual egos. I don't know. What I do know is that Antarctica has got history that I've never read about in any history book, and now we're discovering it in the Grand Canyon, and guess what? It's owned by federal lands, and they blocked it off, so there's no allowing of research in terms of due diligence on what's going on, actually. Do you imagine how something of that kind of magnitude and discovery would change everything in religions, the Pope, the last Pope, whatever? I am noting that Christianity, as it is practiced in all the different cult forms that it does, charismatics and all of that, all have agendas for not wanting certain kinds of information to be disclosed because it would be in conflict with their control mechanism for fellowship and the rest of it. Now, I'm a scientist, and I'm also a Quaker, and I, am into magic, so that means the method of science with the aim of religion. And, now that's where physics is now the leading religion of the world. People say that if a physicist says it, well, it's got to be true. I know that not to be true because I know I don't know, and I'm a good physicist. So it's just another way of approaching things, like Aborigines and some of these others. The thing that I find most interesting is the oldest group that I've studied with were the Inuit up inside the Arctic Circle. And I have been to Fort Yukon and did studies with the military up there as well as Antarctica. And they have legends that go back 20,000 years, the Inuit. Now, 20,000 in their songs. They're even deeper than the Hopi. And we have these knowledge bases accessible to us, but somehow there has been a methodical suppression of certain kinds of discoveries and information that has led us to this moment. And watch what happens with the Italian bank this week. I mean, Germany has already gone down. Now they're going to do criminal charges against Wells Fargo. We're in deep doo-doo.
I like the fact that they're going to do criminal charges against Wells Fargo because they're corrupt. Their activities
that's the way that works. He's going away. The president is going to walk away, severance, with $200 million.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Good job. Too bad you got caught. That's
pretty much the rule of what I am saying about I don't get politics. And what happened in that, was it the 13th Amendment, where they talked about that if you were a lawyer, you couldn't hold a political position?
Yeah, hold that thought. George in New Hampshire, welcome. You're on with Dr. Richard Allen Miller.
Hi, Ben. Hi, Dr. Rick.
Hi.
If you don't mind, I just had a couple of points on the Nazi base, if you don't mind. Rick, did you happen to encounter when you were up there? I was told that the British sent in special teams around 1946, and Admiral Byrd made a military maneuver up there with 5,000 heavily armed Marines, an aircraft carrier, and a number of supporting vessels, and fairly sophisticated cold weather equipment for the time. And they were supposed to be up there for 6 months. In 1946, it was Operation High Jump. And what happened?
Yeah, they got their tail whacked with Foo Fighters and jets that didn't exist at that point. And the Russians have actually released videos of the actual film footage of that event when Byrd lost 3 ships. He lost 3 ships. That's historical. So, of course, my friend Matt A. Babarello, head of the Brazilian Secret Service, said they used to stage on that island just off of Brazil going in. Everybody knew about it. Why don't we talk about that today? Well, let's talk about Monsanto and Bayer. And that Nazi group that just took over 90% of the world's food population and has the largest private army in the world. How's that going to play? And so, there's a 1,000-year war going on, and the Fourth Reich is alive and well on the planet Earth, and Antarctica is now history, but how come we never were told about that?
Well, I was told that they also built bases in other places of the world.
Argentina came to mind, for example, the boys from Brazil.
But I like I say, I only get fragments from different sources, but I've heard of something. They said it was encountered there by this British Special Commando team, and I believe they also had some Norwegians with them. They went in, and they tried to blow up the cabin, block it off, and do as much damage they could to the underground base. But they claimed that there were these beings called the polar men. I don't know if you've heard of them, but I imagine they were somewhat of a kind of like a abominable snowman type of creature, but they were man-eaters. And they said that certain survivors of the British commando team that had been stranded up there for about 6 months claimed that they managed to catch one in one of the huts and lock it in on the German base above ground because the Germans had relocated below ground. And he said that supposedly, in other words, they eventually got a rescue team up there and they killed the being. But did you have any danger when you're up there? That
no, I wasn't aware of Yeti or Sasquatch or Wendigo. That has legendarily been available in historical periods as something that lives underground. I don't know how that all works. So, I didn't have any feelings of danger. My job, I was working under a woman anthropologist. My purpose was to figure out how the light worked. The whole cavern was lit. We're talking about a mile high and bright. It was like daylight in there. It's different, but daylight. You could see everything clearly, shadows, all of that. And it was a bioluminescence in the bacteria that would line the cavern. It was huge. And I don't understand how that could happen. but I can certainly understand why someone having been there would also say, well, I'll bet I could prove the Earth is flat, because I've seen things that I had no idea existed in our Earth. I live here in the free state of Jefferson right now, and I have to tell you, the whole place here is littered with underground caverns that are natural and artificial. Some of them got put in the 1812 when the bridge was poured. I saw one bunker that was a gold mine that was poured with the same concrete the bridges were in 1912 here in Grants Pass. And so they've been here a long time. And these military dew line and the actual NORAD protection screens that we have along the coast, Oregon starts up in Gold Beach and runs all the way down into the Trinities. High and Palm, Hayfork, they've all got access and egress into going. There's one tunnel going from Weimar all the way down to High and Palm. That's 4.5 hours by motorcycle. That's a new one, but people don't get the fact that the whole place on the East Coast, you can go all the way from Maine all the way down to Florida without ever coming above ground.
May I hang
Rick,
on
does
one other thing?
Yeah, please hold, George. Rick, does that tunnel network include...
That was an interesting sidebar.
Does that tunnel include Springfield, Missouri? Because we have a Springfield underground tunnel system here. Ram.com, if you'd like to peruse his Facebook page.
Oh, hey, Vincent?
Maybe order some books. DocRam.com, yes.
I need to make an announcement. My Encyclopedia of Alternative Agriculture is now available in ebook form and all 9 volumes. And if you buy them all 9 as a group, I think there's like a 20% discount or something like that. But I've just uploaded the Encyclopedia of Alternative Agriculture. I've got a brand new set of books out nobody's ever seen.
Do you know what the price is right now, Rick?
I think it's $5.99 per book. They're big, thick books like the Encyclopedia, that I did. It's like 9 volumes, so if I were to do it in a book form, it's probably around 8 inches thick. It's like really detailed, cross-referenced, index, and I have it for each year, 10 years, 9 years. 9 years. And
I'm all excited about that. That is really interesting. Class, I suggest you consider that, and I'm going to get a copy as well.
And I think there's a discount
I'm looking forward
if you
to
buy them all. So
Yeah. Okay, great. All right, and let's see. We've got George in New Hampshire. We'll have to go quickly because we've got Tom in Baltimore waiting.
Okay, Ben, I'll just say this. You mentioned a movie yesterday on the beach. But I'd like to recommend one that I think would be beneficial to all is Penick in the Year Zero with Ray Milland. Frankie
I remember that one.
1962. About a family that's on just a routine summer trip, and they find out that the Russians had attacked, and they see the mushrooms cloud. And I'll leave it with this. It's not too well known. I know you gentlemen know, but the Russians, between the 4th of this month and the 7th, are having 40 million people go to underground bomb shelters as a drill. Yes. They're really taking seriously the threats that were made by this regime we have here. And I think we might be much closer to something than we think. And that's all I want to say.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And there are those headlines that have been talking about World War III based on Barry and the bandits. Let's see. We've got Tom in Baltimore. We've got just a couple minutes. Welcome, Tom.
Hi, gentlemen. I'll make it quick. I have to comment on the last caller, though. I've been saying this to as many people as I can. Our lower courts are empowered by the people. They're not constitutional courts. They're not your superior courts, so to speak. Doesn't mean they can't get things done. And I've been encouraging people to take advantage of the bloodless battlefield that we currently have before we have to go to another type. If you remember, Judge Wapner used to always say, the first thing out of his mouth was, I've read your complaint and I know you've been sworn. He did that because he was good at following procedure. That is what gave him the power to rule over those cases. That's what gives all our local courts the power. We make our pleadings, and we give them the power. We empower those courts. I encourage everyone, file a grievance that you have with your government, because all you have to do is look around. It's all criminal. It's all criminal. Let them throw it out. If we all do it, they cannot ignore the pleadings of the people. And I'll call you back tomorrow about my experience at Fort Ritchie here in Maryland. It's all a deep underground base where Cheney was taken after 9/11.
Yeah, call in, Tom, please call in second hour if that's okay with you.
Will do. Have a good day, gentlemen.
I appreciate
Great. Thank
all
you.
of what
Thank
you
you so
said,
much.
by the way. Dead on.
Rick, did you get a chance to see the alleged debates?
I turned it off because it was a disgrace to watch two presidential candidates act like school children in a playground arguing. It was embarrassing.
I'm talking about the vice presidential debate.
Oh, no. I didn't even want to go right for it. Oh, my gosh.
Well, I watched it. I watched it. And the reason I watched it, I wanted to see how aligned the vice presidential hopefuls were to the presidential hopefuls, and it's unbelievable. Tim Kaine, who was with Hillary, attacked, interrupted, was antagonistic. He just kept talking. That's the last guy I want to see representing my interest.
Yeah,
Mike Pence was. Mike Pence was more presidential, more calm, more collected, but he interrupted as well. Not as much as Tim Kaine, but there was a lot of bickering, and it was unpleasant.
These are supposed to
I turned it off.
Most scholarly.
I turned it off. Rick Miller, thanks so much. DocRam.com.